Welcome to the Evergreen Creative Company Podcast. We like to call it the Evergreen Creative Podcast. It's a little bit shorter to say, but our main goal for this podcast is to share our experiences as a company through the projects that we work on a weekly basis. Whether you're a client or another creator, you're going to get to hear our experiences from each project that we work on. So if you find value from this podcast, please leave a review and also share this with your friends and colleagues.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
You ready to... What are you doing?
I'm turning the dryer off. Okay.
All right, let me know when you're settled.
We're going to talk about how you aided a police investigation.
Right.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You can move the microphone closer to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to. My brain was melted after Saturday. We'll get into it.
That's why I want to be like doing this podcast session, because it's like so much happened and it's just great conversation. So the goal of this is to
keep it for our own records.
Yeah, our own records. Y'all talk for a second so I can get some levels.
Levels.
Hello? Hello.
Testing 1 2 test. All right, Houston.
Yo. Let me just eat it real quick. It's not going to be that loud, I promise.
And Hannah.
Hello. I feel I don't know why, but in this microphone, I feel like I'm talking very soft-spoken, which I don't feel is my
You're
normal.
compensating because you're wearing headphones.
Is it SMR? Is that the
ASMR.
ASMR.
You're just compensating because you're wearing headphones.
I guess so.
Kristen.
It's like Grandpa with his hearing aids.
Yep.
Okay.
I feel like just about every weekend we always have a plan of not letting these people go back to work with normal memories of what we actually did.
Just saying, this camera has gone black. Is it supposed to?
It's blinking red.
Yeah.
Yeah, the screen turns off when you're recording.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
So I mean,
I don't want to be blamed.
we can get into that for a second. Like the GoPro didn't stay recording at the graduation.
Did you check the footage?
Yeah.
Did
It got
save
the,
it? Okay.
it got the beginning part, but we don't have any of the ending.
Because it was recording the whole time, but then whenever I went back there to take it down, it wasn't recording and the screen was just frozen.
Yeah. So I mean, we got the entrance, which was like the main effort for that angle, anyways.
Yeah. I
And
just hope it.
To be specific, the harvest graduation.
Yes. Of the 14 we did this weekend.
Right.
I hope that the ZV1 worked out too. Because it just randomly,
Which one? Oh, what
at
project?
Harvest,
At Harvest. Oh yeah.
it just shut off. And I was like, okay, cool.
That's all backed up. I think it worked out. There might be a gap in time with that camera, but you had the other one going, so it should be okay.
Fingers crossed.
So I mean, all this to say, one, I need another cup of coffee. They're ahead of me already. They got more, but
This is my first of the day, though. I'm like 2 sips in.
Yeah, yesterday.
Worst time to record a podcast.
Yesterday we had to get up at like 7 a.m. and Houston made himself a coffee. It did not make me one.
oh man.
And I was not happy.
Even though Monday is like, okay, we got to get the gears turning. But at the same time, like every weekend we have, or mostly every weekend, we have a lot going on. And this last one, we definitely had that. We had graduations, we had concert festivals,
More graduation.
just more graduations. It's been a busy month for sure. So in some of our conversations, we were talking about how it would be just really cool to get our like a debriefing kind of session to where like we can talk about what happened. So some of the takeaways, some of the things that went great, some of the things that we can improve on, funny stories, anything like that. I feel like other creative entrepreneurs can learn from our experiences and
laugh at our trauma.
mistakes.
Yeah, it's like Krista came home and she told me some stories, which is funny. We'll get into those in a second. But I mean, just looking back at the calendar, so we didn't add up like specifically the hours and miles that we traveled this last few days, but it's been pretty crazy. Like So we're based in Dothan, Alabama, and we traveled up to Boaz, Alabama, which is about a 4.5 hour drive one way. And then we had to, of course, make it back down. So what was it? It was Thursday we left, went up there, set up. We'll get into those details about the project, but then we had to come back. But then Houston, Kristen, and Taylor on Friday had to go back to Butler, Georgia, which for a concert festival that happened. And then they had to come back that night. No, I'm sorry. Houston was not there Friday.
We were at the graduation.
Yeah. See,
Having that graduation on a Thursday night had wrecked my whole perception of what day it was.
So yeah, Thursday we had,
I know. I was like, oh yeah, like it made sense to me.
yeah, so try to get the timeline right. So Thursday was Sneed State Community College. Friday night was Houston and I handling Harvest Christian School's graduation. And then Kristen had a team, or Taylor, at...
Team
which
of
is
Taylor.
just crazy. It's like Houston,
Team of one.
Taylor, and yeah. So she went up to the Friday night part of the concert and then came back that night, left, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning or so.
Did it all
the
over
next
again.
day on Saturday with Taylor in Houston to go back to the concert festival. So between all those miles, it's just crazy amount of hours and miles that we traveled the last few days. But so let's just take one project at a time. So the Sneed State Community College, that was one. We have 4 people working that event, which I think was the appropriate amount of people. We had, I think, all the bases covered. We had 2 photography cameras.
I don't know what that was that I just touched, but it made a weird
Mr.
noise.
Fiddler over here. And then we had 2 video people. And, well, I guess I could count you as video. You were switching.
Yeah, it was just live stream.
So she was switching on the ATEM and all that kind of stuff with, how many angles did we have? We had
We
1,
had
2, 3,
we had
4?
technically 4, but only one of them
About 3.5.
was yeah. One of them was supposed to be on the sign language person.
Mm-hmm.
But people kept getting in the way, including Houston. So I kept having to take it off.
Didn't remember how wide that lens was.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those impromptu kind of things. They gave us that information, not necessarily late in the game, but late enough to where we had to kind of get creative with what we're going to do. We were prepared for it, which was great.
Plenty of gear.
Yeah, plenty of gear. We used the GoPro for angle catching everybody coming in, which was pretty nice. Also going out. That worked out really great. There's a media mod that I picked up at Best Buy, and it allowed us to connect HDMI, which was really cool. So
Yeah, that was super handy.
that helped out a lot. And then, so we had just a wide camera, like with our FX3, I think is what we had. And then we had a tight shot that we had a teleconverter on, which was a recent
On the
pickup
S3. Yeah.
in purpose of using it for this. And that worked out really great too. I guess we could count Kristen as a 5th member because she was like on the viewer end of stuff, making sure everything felt good on that end. So Kristen, like in your opinion, like as far as the viewer's experience, what do you think it was? Was it good? Any improvements or
Did
what
we
was the
suck real
good
bad?
stuff, bad stuff?
Everything sounded good. Everything lined up. I don't know that there was any issues on my end other than like trying to keep up with the sign language lady, and I'm like, we can't see her. But
Yeah. Well, for me, there were a couple spots where I was switching back and forth between a wide frame and a tight frame that I was trying to keep up with while I was also having to take off this sign language person, put her back on. Like it was.
Also, like for the listeners' information too, like we had it like in a picture-in-picture kind of thing. It wasn't a main cut or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to add that value to the live stream, so that way if there's anybody at home, or actually if just anybody that watches it again that is needs that kind of service, like they have it. I mean, we did our best, and at the very least, the wide shot still had her in the frame.
Yeah.
But-
She can only
Yeah.
do so much when she steps behind the PA.
Yeah, and that's like, so the improvements area on that, which I want to say like, it's kind of like a 2-in-1 kind of thing. We had a lot of communication with the college beforehand. We had a lot of planning that happened. We were all pretty much on the same page. So as far as like the smoothness of the project, I thought it went really well. we got there. Jason helped us out. He was very helpful. Setup and teardown went pretty well. I mean, as far as timely manner, like it was so much better than just one or two people doing something like that.
Right.
But like little things like that you don't think about until you experience it, like the sign language lady. Like they had put a chair, she sat down. So, okay, great. We're just going to frame her up that way. And it looked great. Like it was, you know, you could see everything just fine. But then she stood up the rest of the time and then kind of took a step back to where the PA speaker was kind of covering her up from that angle. Like it's little things like that. So like in the future, like we can, if we have a similar experience, we can say, hey, can you stay on this mark? Like we can actually put a gaff tape marker, like stay in this spot.
And you would think having a camera pointed at the stage that people would know, like, hey, don't walk in front of the camera. But they really didn't.
Yeah, all the ushers standing right in front of the camera.
Or people trying to get to their seat.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So in comparison to preparation from the Sneed State to Harvest, like Kristen, she showed up to the practice. And so like they were able to go over like where everybody's going to be, where they need to be, what they need to do, and things like that. We were not able to because, like, of course, we were 4.5 hours away.
Still
so
driving.
If we were there during their practice, we could have mentioned to the ushers, hey, we're going to have a camera angle right here, you know, things like that. But for the most part, like, you still got to be able to roll with the punches, and I think we're pretty good at that.
Yeah, like when we were planning on doing a sound check, and as soon as we were planning to do it, the sound guy left until about 20 minutes before. When everyone was already in there, and it was like, all right.
Yep. And
where did y'all end up setting up the video cameras at Harvest?
So your original plan was to have the 2 cameras up in the balcony,
yes.
Which could have worked out okay. But when we got there, I was like, the tight shot would look really good from the side. So we went on the front row on each camera. So if you're looking at the stage, on the left was the wide shot.
The ZV-1.
And the ZV-1. And then on the right side, Houston was manning that camera,
the
getting
S3
the tight
with the
stuff.
70-200.
Okay.
Which worked out perfectly because the way I was framed up, they lined up some tape on the stage with the kid in the middle and then the parents on either side. So I was shooting straight across at them. So it looked really nice.
Yeah. And then we even made an adjustment on the photography side with Harvest. Originally, Kristen was just going to be like 3 rows back and kind of step out when moments needed to be captured kind of stuff. But I ended up coordinating with the Miss Libby and just asked if I could sit on the front row.
You were chilling right up there with the graduates.
And it worked out great just because like the main angle of like where the parents were standing at with their child, it was perfect. So I didn't have to move anywhere. I could catch them coming in easy without being obtrusive or anything like that. So going back to Sneed State too, on the photography side of stuff too, the 8200 with the bubble, it worked out okay, but it kind of started choking up towards the middle of the graduation. Like at first I was able to snap a photo and a pop, like the flash would pop, but then once it got tired or something,
and then
it
was struggling.
Like 2 or 3 like shutter clicks in, it would pop, and then we could move on, but it wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to. So what I'd made the adjustment with the Harvest one is I used the 8600 and it performed just fine.
And in retrospect, you said you'd wish you'd used that for Sneed.
And I just aimed it up at the ceiling and just kind of bounced the flash. But I also, you also have to take into account like the Sneed, I don't know, it was about the same timing. Like it was about the same length ceremony. It just wasn't as consecutive shots, like refresh time.
Less graduates, but they each had more time to do stuff at Harvest.
Right. So that was an adjustment that I made coming off of the 8200. I think it could have done okay, but it's also like those rooms are so big that you just have to have more light. And I think the photos turned out great from both from the college graduation and the high school graduation. Kristen edited most of those. So what's your opinion on how those all turned out, Kristen, from both schools?
I think they all turned out well. I'm curious and this has nothing to do with the actual quality, but I'm curious if there's a system in place where we could be like, all right, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we just shoot once instead of 17, not 17, but like 3 times.
She said,
And that
At
went down.
Houston Taylor.
She said,
who
please.
took 3,000
I wasn't gonna
photos.
call you out like
Please
that.
make me go through less photos.
I was calling it the whole day. I was like, she's gonna hate me for
Yeah,
this.
literally when we
But I
left,
have
and
a
he turned to
heavy
Josh and
shutter
he said,
finger.
he said, Kristen's going to hate me. I have like 3,000 photos.
I told Kristen about it, and I was like, he probably appreciated a little bit of a change up doing photography for a change, because you're normally always doing video type
Yeah.
stuff. And then Chris was like, yeah, he's going to have to change up his editing too,
It's
because
just
they go through all these.
it's just PTSD from working in live production for 3.5 years, where it's like you got one shot to get everything right. So
Right.
take 100 photos of the same moment.
It's okay. Taylor on Saturday also took 3,000 photos.
Nice.
So
Nice.
For just a couple hours.
I honestly think it's overcompensating because he's used to doing video. So when he's doing photo, he's not used to it. So he's like, I got to get it perfect.
Yeah. But as far as what we did get, like, the coverage was fine. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think we could have done, if we'd done anything more, it'd been way overkill, and it would have just shot us in the foot, editing wise, even more. So it was definitely worth having comparing the 2 different graduations. So at the Sneed State one, we had 2 photographers working, which worked out great because, like, I was in the back of the room with the 70 to the 200, and I could only get certain angles and stuff. But you were on the looking at the stage on the left side.
Right where they would come off.
That, but also some of the audience stuff that they incorporated, like having special guests
They would
stand
call
up.
out the mayor.
They were all on that side, so it
Right
worked out
behind
great
me.
that way. Which another, like, learning point is, like, a question that we need to ask, like, any special guests, where are they going to be? Are they just going to be randomly in the audience, or are they all going to be in one spot? So
Because
can
we had
know
no
in
idea
turn.
that was happening.
Right.
Another learning point for me was to bring a sweater because I was shaking. It was
That
so
gym
cold
was
in there.
freezing cold.
It
At
was so
first, it
cold.
warmed up pretty good once everybody got in there.
Once it started, but
You don't really think about needing a sweater
Mm-hmm.
in May in
yeah,
Alabama.
for the first
Right.
like 3 hours that we were there, I was shaking.
Personally, I like it colder than hotter, though. But yeah, it's nice to always have that, though. Have a hoodie with you no matter what.
there's a lot of, I think most photographers that are coming to these events are not doing the candids and the side shots and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking over, I uploaded all of Sneed last night and sent out all the registered emails and stuff like that. And just going over the favorites list, like, all of the candids are included, and also, and the shake and take. But I feel like that the candids are appreciated and the side angle is appreciated.
Yeah. Well, with the candid kind of stuff, you learned from previous years. Just to even, like, you were surprised, even with with the senior portraits that we did prior to the graduation, there were people that purchased the BTS looking stuff. And so that was pretty interesting to me.
That was a high school parent that wanted, that was for Harvest. But
For
yeah,
Harvest, yeah.
she emailed and said, "Thank you so much for getting this candid."
And they actually used it on the screen.
During his slideshow.
Like, each student had a slideshow kind of stuff going on. So, like, it's easy to kind of get tunnel vision. Like, of course, the shake and take, turn at the camera, smile with your diploma kind of stuff is probably, like, the highest point of the importance.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people that, like, actually appreciate some of the more candid kind of stuff too. So, during the Harvest one, like Kristen reminded me, make sure to take candids and stuff. So I'll just go around and do that kind of thing too, which also, using the 8600 pointed up kind of towards the middle of the room, really helped out to be able to, like, I could be almost at any spot and get the same kind of lighting. I was not having to make a bunch of adjustments lighting wise just to get even candids when I was walking around, getting the candids plus some of the details, because at Harvest each student had a table with old pictures and desserts.
Memorabilia.
All the homeschool and otherwise high school graduations here, and I know from my experience from graduating from a homeschool place in Dothan, they're the longest graduations because they spend a lot of time on each person.
it's cool. I do like that aspect about it. I think Harvest did a better time this year with their blurbs about the student. I think previous years, like some of them were kind of long-winded, and it really kind of drug out the whole ceremony, but I think they did pretty good with keeping it a certain amount of time.
Yeah. I didn't think it was terribly long. Like, I've not done Harvest graduation before, so I have no context, but it didn't feel like it was all that bad.
But in comparison, like, the graduation was just as long as the Sneed State.
That's true, and they had like 300 students versus like 20.
Did they have to write Did the parents write letters or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that, and the parents recorded it, and you just had to stand on stage with your parents while
they had somebody read the parents' letter.
Yeah, Miss Libby, which is she the principal, Kristen?
That's not her title, but yes.
Okay. Lead master.
Whatever they call it.
Anyways, she read the
head homeschooler in charge
blurbs and stuff at Harvest. So I thought that was a pretty cool takeaway with that kind of thing. Also, like, there's a couple of students that I knew, and I knew some of the, information that not everybody knows about the particular student. And so, like, there was a couple like that I was like, this was nice to be part of. So even on obviously the professional side, I think everything went well, but also just being part of those moments and seeing some of the people that and some of the things that they've been through, and they're still here kind of stuff it's nice to be part of that. So Kristen, one last thing I want to touch on with the graduation stuff, on the planning side of things, like with the ordering, and like explain like what we did ahead of time to try to gain purchases, but also just communicate with the school and the students about how they can obtain the pictures and things like that.
Okay. So I know this area is going to be improved with us in the future because it was also a learning curve. But in setting up everything with the administration, we said we will cover photos and we're going to have a link for them to purchase. And I didn't even bother. I started with order forms, but I said, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to do this. We did flyers that went out during practice for each place. Each student got a flyer with a QR code saying, these are where your photos will be once they're done. And then we also made postcards that also had a little blurb about what Evergreen even was, that we didn't just do graduations, plus the QR code. And all of those went in their diploma envelope. So that way, all they had to do was scan it, and it took them straight to the ordering website.
And the fun part about those postcards was, like, give this to your mom.
Yeah.
Like, we literally said that on the card.
Yeah.
But aside from that, everything's been uploaded. We've already had a couple orders since last night. And so hopefully that works. There's definitely room for improvement. Also looking for a better, what is it called? A better hosting site for print purchases that is a little more user-friendly for the amount of photos that we have to get out there.
So currently we're using Pixie Set, right?
Yes.
So is there anything else that's been on your radar to look at?
No. Hannah, can you figure that out?
Objective one today.
Sure. I will do it. Is that for like physical photo prints? Because Houston and I had someone walk in last week in an event that we had done last fall. They were like, can I get a print of that?
Right.
It was the Friends of Army Aviation Gala.
Yeah.
We turned in all those photos like the week that we did it, but the wife of one of the guys in charge came in last week while we were here by ourselves and was like, I'm trying to get this photo of us printed, but I don't know where any of the photos are. So to dig through Google Drive and find it.
So normally, like, we store everything on Google Drive, but with Pixie Set, you only have so many gigs that you can keep there. So once the older projects are done, we just have to kind of get rid of that project. Even we still have a backup on Drive, but with Pixie Set, you have a limited amount of storage. So we try to, we'll have weddings, we got graduations, so things kind of fill up kind of fast. But it does give you an option when you go to Pixie Set to download, and it depends on your settings. You can just let people download for free, however you want to do that, or you can set up a pricing for downloads, but you can also have options for print services.
Yeah, I have, so in the store option, you can build your own store. I have separate ones for just Evergreen's pricing sheet, which is what I use on all weddings. And it has different packages, and our wedding packages currently, when we sell our wedding our services rather to a couple, they get their digital downloads for free. So in the Evergreen pricing sheet, we don't even offer payment for a digital download because we're going to give them a code to be able to download the whole thing for free.
Downloads wise, they've already paid for it.
Yes. But for corporate events and other events, just regular events, I have a whole separate pricing sheet that they need to pay per photo. And then school is different also because that's a whole different setup. We are typically not paid to be there. Our payment is whatever parents are willing to pay for their photos. So that's a whole different pricing sheet. And so you can set up different stores per project. And the one thing that I didn't like about Pixie Set and their downloads, you can either download one at one price or all of them at a different price. You can't discount the more you buy. So one mom emailed saying, hey, there's 34 photos. Can I not pay $50 a photo for downloads? And I'm like, completely understandable. Let me figure this out.
Yeah.
I'll look at.
Aside from that point too, one of the sales strategies is being that it is a limit. We give a limited amount of time for them to do the print. So we kind of put the pressure on the customer or client to, if you're going to do it, we encourage you to do it this way, but you have a limited amount of time to get it done because it's not going to live there forever. So any other takeaways or learning points or whatever from the graduations? What could we do better? Any major or big positives? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, mine was really just to bring a sweater. So.
And water, we didn't have water. There's one time you were looking around for water, and we needed to have that. Little things like that.
Stay hydrated,
Stay
kids.
hydrated.
We need to have Christopher on set with snack bags at all times.
Please.
Snack master.
Snack master Chris.
Yeah, so let's move on to the concert festival.
Oh, geez.
So Hannah and I sat that one
Yeah.
out. Kristen, just kind of explain what the event was, and then y'all can just talk about that because you and Houston covered that one.
Yeah, so it was Mudfest, and that's it. That wraps it up.
That's it.
It is a mud park where there's miles and miles and miles of trails and ponds and lakes and stuff where you can ride your side-by-sides or four-wheelers through the mud all day long. And then at night, you head over to the concert area, and there's 3 or 4 bands that put on a concert for everybody. Food trucks, lots of alcohol, lots of fun. But that was that in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So who were the artists on Friday and Saturday?
Yes, so I don't know who Friday was. But the headline, there's Corey Smith on
Corey
Friday.
Smith.
Was the headliner, and then Jelly Roll was the headliner on Saturday, but he was preceded by Trey Lewis, who is also a bigger name.
Trey Lewis, and then the other two openers were Bear, but it's spelled Bexar. They're like an indie folk band. Like, they were the only ones that kind of felt like
the spelling of their name.
Yeah, they kind of felt out of place a little bit. And then some band called Still Matthews.
The guy in the white shirt with the brown hair was as the lead singer, was that Bear?
Yes.
They were good.
They were. I actually enjoyed listening to them.
I mean,
I'm not a big country person, so they kind of were just different enough.
I think the only country that in recent stuff that we've covered that I kind of enjoyed was it Colt Ford? Is that his name?
Oh yeah.
Kind of does the country rap stuff.
When we
it was interesting. It's nothing it's just not my style of music at all.
Yeah, I love everybody who loves country music, but I feel like if I want to hear something country, I'll just like go talk to my grandparents. And that's it. It's like when we have like country themed events, whatever, here, like when high schools have like country themed stuff, and I'm like, do we not have that every day? Like, is that not how we live?
Yeah. We got there. Easy. Kristen might remember that I said this, which you also being not from Alabama like myself, we got there and just taking in the atmosphere of everything happening. I'm like,
granted, it was in Georgia.
Oh, that's right. It was in Georgia.
So,
but we ate well, and there was pound cake.
We can rag on Georgia a little bit.
But there was pound cake, and that was worth it.
Thank you, Georgia.
Yes. We washed down our 8 pounds of pound cake with a sugar-free energy drink to make it better.
Sugar-free.
Balance.
Shout out 0FG.
Yes. It was actually really good. I don't know where they're from, but they're one of the sponsors of the event.
Oh, hey, surprise. I ordered a bunch and sending it to the studio.
Sweet.
Let me see.
Didn't you say that they're kind of local or from that area?
From what I understand, yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Some NASCAR driver created a energy drink brand, and they were sponsors of the event.
So
they had a couple guys run around with S3s and gimbals, like just getting content for them. There were so many videographers there. We'll get into it later, but
yeah,
I feel like I was swimming in a sea of videographers. All Team Sony, though.
Team Sony. That's good to hear.
It's true. It's true.
Before I forget, like I should have said this before, like the scope of the projects, we should probably say that. So Sneed State, we did photography. So we had a headshot station to where they could get their cap and gown photos or like business profile shots. We're going to market that a little bit differently next time. We're going to, like, we want to do a video about saying, like, this is your LinkedIn profile, you know, air quotes, you know, but it could be used for, you know, like wink at them and be like Tinder or something like that. But anyways, headshot station. And then we did live streaming for the ceremony and then photography coverage. That was Sneed State. Basically almost the same for Harvest minus the live stream. We just did a straight recording. Let's just say full recording, not straight recording. So that was that project. But for this Mudfest, it's a hype video plus photography coverage. So there was 2 opportunities. So Friday night was mostly concert stuff, and then Saturday was some of the, you know, grounds, features, the trails and all that kind of stuff, and then followed by the concert. So that's the scope of the projects with what we did the last few days. But anyways, Kristen had a funny story about how you were talking about the production teams and stuff, and so like the energy drink production team came up and they're like, so what production team were you with? And everybody just kind of looked right at Kristen, and Kristen's like, oh, that's us, that's me.
It was a little bit surreal that Taylor and Houston kind of just waved over my direction.
Like, who are you guys with? We just pointed.
So you also, the local sheriff's department got an assist.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well,
Why does that keep happening in events?
I was in the back of the car switching out some lenses or something, and one of the sheriff guys walks over to me. And he's like, you guys out flying a drone right now? And I thought Kristen was flying the drone. I was like, yeah, I think she's out flying it, taking concert videos. And he's like, we need you to bring it over here. And I was like, are we in trouble? What did we do? And
she has a license.
And then I realized, I was like, oh, no, it's in the car. We're not flying anything. And he's like, can you take it up and fly it? And I was like, I don't have my license. And he's like, one of the other guys was like, we're not going to do anything. We're not the FAA. But Kristen walks over just at that moment, and then I ran off to go do whatever.
Have you met Ted?
So then Kristen can take it from here.
Yeah, and then Houston completely bailed, and I'm now
I had to go film Trey Lewis.
a bunch of deputies. But yeah, they needed us to look over a piece of the land. The concert area sits on over 400 acres, but there was a neighboring property that they needed a quick look at while for security
stuff
reasons.
So vague. Yeah, so that was an interesting element. You had what band guy just was like, I'm gonna go hug that photographer.
Yeah. So this is a 20-minute period from flying the drone. I land it. I pick it up with the propeller still on because it's dark now. And so my fingers are dripping
A
blood
lot
just
happened.
a little bit. And I take a deep breath, clean up my hand, and I'm like, I think I need a drink now. And so I was going to head over to the vendor bus area where we can get beers and whatever. And I kind of sidetracked because I heard the TikTok song that Trey Lewis plays. And I was like, okay, never mind. I'm just going to run up on stage and get some crowd shots of him in the background. And with him in the background of it. And so I get up there, and it's a good 15 seconds, and he leans over and tells his guitarist, he's like, I'm going to go hug the photographer. And
So
the guitarist tells me later that he said that he called it before. And then he goes over there and just bear hugs me in the middle of his set in the shadow of the whole stage.
And you were recording the whole
Just, like,
time.
for
You were
fun?
video recording. It's all on video.
Is it
I
on
was
video?
No.
Oh.
Yes, I
You
was.
You showed me the clip, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. I recorded it because he was waving and interacting with the camera, and I'm like, yay, somebody's interacting with the camera. And then he just walks right in and hugs me, and I'm like, what is happening now? Because I thought this
little 2 POV for that.
Had he, was it for fun? Had he been drinking? What was the cause?
He's actually 15 years sober. He said at some point during his set.
What he just was like.
Just having fun.
I guess I
Needing
look
a
like a
hug.
huggable person. Yeah, it was great.
He also.
I do
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Taylor did get photos, and I did brush through them real quick. They are dark, so I'm going to have to lighten them up, but I'm very excited.
He also took off his shirt and threw it in the crowd not once but twice.
But twice.
During his set, took
Wait,
off
did
his
they
shirt.
throw it back, or did he put on a new shirt?
He put on a new shirt, but he left the stage with no shirt. Took his shirt off, threw it, and some kid caught it and put it all in his face, and that's disgusting. But then he came back during Jelly Roll's set with a new shirt, also took that one off and threw it to the crowd.
my God.
This guy hates.
Jelly roll?
No, not Jelly Roll.
Jelly roll through it.
I was like, he took off his shirt. Interesting.
It must have been hot out there.
It was. Let me tell you.
All right, so takeaways. Any more takeaways or learning points from? So, okay, I don't want to see how generic I can keep this too without. I want to be candid, but also, I don't know. I'm not. My heart isn't to talk junk, whatever. But at times, some of these, anything to do with music festivals or artists and stuff like that, and I could probably speak for many videographers and photographers, they're the hardest to work with, communication wise. And so we have policies, one of our policies is we have to have the contract signed and upfront payment. That's our policy. We don't chase people down for stuff. And so it was kind of hard to get all that done. We were chasing them down literally the day of.
While we were driving back from the graduation.
Because we're like, we can't show up if we're not going to get paid kind of stuff. So somehow we've got to figure out a way to make that a smoother process. Like, I don't know. I wasn't enjoying like not knowing what we're going to do, or like put the company or ourselves in awkward positions where it's like we show up and like they don't have a check ready, they're not ready to pay online or anything like that, or like the person that, you know, at times, like sometimes the person that cuts the check per se isn't even on the premises. So it's like, if any listeners or someone like has a better process to help make things like that happen, like we had to get kind of just stern with them and like, hey, we can't do this until this happens. But I don't like it happening the day of kind of stuff.
Once we got there, though, all the people sort of in place, in charge, like on site, were really helpful. Like I felt like it went pretty smooth on our end, like actually shooting.
Right.
They had somebody pull up with us side by side to take us through all the trails, all the mud pits where everybody was happening. They even helped us like set up some stuff, like had people get in their four-wheelers and cars and drive through mud and stuff. So on-site day was pretty easy, at least Saturday.
Which normally that's usually the case, but like on the back end of logistics, it's like, I don't know if you're a client or if you're ever trying to hire someone to do something, like on the client end, I would like to see better responses and stuff. And I know we're all busy and things like that, but even on that side of stuff, like if I could ask clients, like just talking to clients for a second, I would like to see better communication on that end. And like it's not like we weren't communicating, like we were asking and stuff like that. So phone calls, text, email.
Like on their end, they're getting pulled in the same sort of being pulled in several different directions for several different kinds of clients or vendors. And so, yeah, I get it. But I wonder if on our end, as soon as he said, let's do this, if we were like, okay, sign the contract right now, pay it right now.
While they're right at the computer kind of thing.
Yeah. And then also, instead of saying, like our contract for corporate clients says it's got to be paid the day before. What if we need to boost that up a few days, saying, yeah, it all needs to be paid 5 days in advance, so that way we have employees in place and stuff like that. Right. I mean, typically we can make anything happen. We've never not shown up with enough people. But I'm wondering if on our end being a little more strict and direct, just so that way it's all the way out of the way. Because
which is part of the reason why we say like payment up front, because it's like I would assume even on the client end of stuff, like taking care of all that business so you can move on to the thing that matters most, which is capturing the event. Another part of the scope of the project is that they want this done by tomorrow at the time of this recording. So once we get into this, like we'll be hitting the computer pretty hard.
They have an event in Louisiana. They have an event in Louisiana that's very similar to this one, except bigger. And they want to boost the posts and push the video hard and stuff like that starting tomorrow.
So one of the things that, like talking about just the event experience and what like the services that we provide, something that we like to do, and I don't see any other teams do anything like this, is that like as far as photography goes, like we can send images from our cameras to our phones to send to whoever is, putting out social media kind of stuff. And so you get like much higher quality content to put out during the day, almost in the moment, versus like the next day or next few days you're going to get that nice content at that point. But during the event, like we're able to get you those images right away. So I've always enjoyed being able to do that, to send those to like whoever the manager is, to do that kind of stuff. That's something that we also provide.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I couldn't even find the person who could even post things. And the main guy, I asked him and he was like, we'll get it Monday or Tuesday, it's fine. And so if I wish these sorts of places would have someone to continue to create hype throughout the day of the event, because I feel like that's a whole experience in itself, is especially these kids in the mud and stuff like that, when they're in between things and they see themselves on Facebook. I mean, that's exciting.
Like, there were a lot of content creators on site for a bunch of different people, but I don't know who, if anyone, was in charge of like putting stuff up throughout the day, at least not for the mud park or anything like that, because we were there. We were hired by the production event. Yeah. Then there was some guy there who was kind of following us around the day, who I think was contracted through like the lighting sound design company for Trey Lewis to shoot.
Yes.
And then Jelly Roll had a guy there. There was like some other guy there running around with an FX3 on a gimbal, and then 2 guys shooting for the energy drink company. Like, there were a ton of guys there, but I don't know where any of that content was going. All Team Sony, by the way.
All Team Sony. All guys. I was one
sponsor
of
us,
the only
please.
female.
What, Kristen?
Me and Taylor were the only females on any sort of production.
Nice.
Leave it to us to bring diversity.
There you go.
The diversity of women.
Yeah, right.
Well, we had Jeremy Tolliver with us, who's African American on the Sneed project. I think like another part of this podcast I want to do is like a pro tips segment. And when you were just talking about like the client relationship kind of stuff, of even how we got this project, I want to touch on that. Like probably the biggest pro tip, or a big pro tip that you can take away from all this stuff, and more so leaning towards the Mud Festival, is that it's so important to try to keep a good relationship even through a rough or negative experience. We worked with a manager at a local venue at a previous concert around this area. And so unfortunately that venue or that concert got rained out or delayed. And there was only a certain amount of time that we could fly the drone. And that's what we were hired for that particular project, was just some drone footage. Kristen was out there. She was only able to do a limited amount. And needless to say, it was kind of a disappointing delivery, because we weren't able to deliver the potential of what we were trying to go after. So we try to keep things right. We try to make things right. We were in conversation and all that kind of stuff. But also, like it's a tight circle of people in the industry in this area. And so like we also work with other production teams and things like that, like Premier Entertainment Group. Like we actually just wrapped up a promo video with them, doing all kinds of stuff. And so just like we want the best experience with our clients as possible. And so it wasn't the best turnout that we wanted. But this particular manager recommended us to work this other concert festival. Like he said, he couldn't think of anybody else to take care of the job like we can. And so like if we were to just be butts about the whole thing, or just not try to make things right, or make efforts to do those kind of things to keep that relationship going, because like it's not just about that one manager, but because we all work in the same circles, it's like if we would have burnt him, we would have burned ourselves in the process. So like that's the thing I would say, like even though it was a pain in the butt at times to try to make sure that we're even going to get paid for this kind of thing, we were professional. We were trying to just do the right thing, but we also wanted to keep a good, like, okay, this guy recommended us, we want to try to do the right thing, but we can't also just show up and not get paid kind of stuff. So like, I think it's super important to keep a good relationship with the people that you work with, even if it's not great experiences, or like there could be a lot of room for improvement kind of stuff.
Yeah, and with that, just representing Evergreen well, because Houston and I had a wedding a couple weeks ago where the photographer was just a little bit in the way, and it was a very frustrating day trying to get any shots, but I mean
24 millimeter lens all day.
That's a discussion for another day.
But we were like nice about everything, because I mean you never know, like if she was to go around saying that we were like really hard to work with or whatever, I mean it's not good for the business in any regard, even if it's frustrating.
Yeah, and I could go back, and I've had this discussion with everybody here on the podcast, but probably we could save it for another more in-depth conversation. But there's been multiple times in the past where, like, if I were to have just gone with my knee-jerk reaction or a negative reaction, like we wouldn't even be sitting here right now kind of stuff. So it's super important to just have, like, even through the rough spots, like suck up your pride or whatever it is, and just do your part, make sure you're doing your stuff, and then things most of the time work out for the best, even if it might take a little while to get through it. I think that should wrap it up. That's almost an hour.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, geez.
It doesn't feel like it.
But we'll record other segments. But I wanted to at least get this first round. I thought it was good potential to get a lot, since we had so much going on. There's probably many more details that we're leaving out that we'll think about later.
Like we spied on a biker gang. Cut this out.
Some details being left out on purpose.
Or the massive amount of this music festival.
Oh.
Also cut this out. I'm probably editing this. I don't know.
We'll see.
Houston and editing. Cut this out.
And if you subscribe to our Patreon, you get the uncut version. You'll have to pay like $1,000 a month or something. How do you put a price on that?
Pay my rent.
How do you put a price on that?
Anyways, all right.
Sweet.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. We appreciate you watching or listening. If you find value from this podcast, please leave a review. It helps rank us up into the podcast algorithms. Also, if you would like to be a guest on the show and share some of your project experiences, let us know, reach out, and we'll be happy to have you on the show, get you scheduled on. If you're a client and want to work on a project with us, there's contact information down below in the video description. We're looking forward to hearing from you and see what your ideas are and see how we can potentially be a fit to make your project happen. Until then, we'll catch you next episode.